Greetings to you to the other side of the screen. I'm Matti Mali, aka Hedonistic Actor, and 15 years ago I released my first video review on the internet. Many of my current viewership probably doesn't know of my past of reviewing movies on such defunct video platforms as Blip and Springboard before switching to video games and fully committing to YouTube in 2018. Well, I did use Dailymotion as a garage stories for a few years. Does anyone use that site for anything else? Nevertheless, for this Tuesday's occasion, I shall take a look at that first review from 2009 in all its 480p glory and see how my reviewing techniques have developed over the years.
Now look at that. Fresh out of upper secondary school, at least 10 kilos lighter and few hairs richer, talking in this exaggeratedly enunciated style as if I was playing some sort of character. Like the members of that funny media criticism site that guy with the glasses were doing. Which is probably why I have dressed like a thespian office worker, but I eventually abandoned the costume 7 videos later.
So the first lesson of the day. Define clearly if you are going for the character route and what even is your character. Well, let's then get into the brand new review show, The Essence of X-Men, that is solely dedicated on reviewing the issues of superhero comic Uncanny X-Men.
What? What that's beside you?
Probably best that I don't put that on my sound engineer resume. I have forgotten what I exactly said there, but essentially my reason for reviewing the issues from my favorite superhero team is to flex with my acting talents, as that intro's half-ironic appeal to movie casting directors may have alluded to. Because what better demo there is to be than a grainy review of the first issue of Uncanny X-Men by a guy who at that point had no formal acting training and whose most notable role was Mac in a local amateur theater productions of Annie Get Your Gun.
Then comes the introducing the creators portion, which in its first iteration is way too long. Just say their names, name 1 or 2 most notable works and move on. Now we won't get to the point until at 2.5 minute mark. This also leads to the cliched joke regarding any X-Men related video on the internet, the "Why is it called X-Men if there's also women in it? Wow, wow!" At least the music choices I've made are generally fitting.
A sharp commanding thought rings out echoing through the great halls of the building. Attention X-Men, this is Professor Xavier calling. Repeat, this is Professor X calling. You are ordered to appear at once. Class is now in session. Tardiness will be punished. Punished severely, that is!
Okay, that was somewhat amusing even if my techniques weren't as refined yet. I regret that I didn't use more background music when I reviewed my old superhero comic Energy Core of Power.
It's time to introduce the heroes where I complain how lame their powers are and how dangerous the tests are. It's Reek, you have a reaction! These criticisms are on the edge of nitpicking, and sometimes I try to get humor by purposefully misunderstanding the content, where I guess the joke is that the 1960s superhero comics were silly. However, I feel that I haven't made it clear enough that this is supposed to be a joke, which is exemplified in this part where I complain how unrealistic their mutant powers are. That's not how genetics work.
This is not genetics, this is magic! I know, it's Silver Age, then stuff just pop out of nowhere, so it makes sense. But some of these story solutions just doesn't hold time very well, don't you think?
Dude, the idea of the superhero genre is to examine on how people would use superpowers, not where they got them. Oh, I'm sure because of my annoyed delivery in the video, there's at least one guy who was baffled by how anyone could get so worked up over the lack of realistic science in a Silver Age comic.
Anyway, Marvel girl old Jean Grey has arrived, and I mock Beast for being a perv and kissing her without permission. Which comes off as hypocritical when I start this running gag where I get a crush on a fictional character. Thankfully the issues Will Magneto shows up to take your attention from that.
So what exactly this evil mutant is trying to do? Well, you guess it. Take over the world. This is my world! What clip you thought I was going to show?
Reference humor. It's a fickle thing, and I don't personally do that anymore, at least in clip form, because It's lazy. Just let the product that you are reviewing provide the material on its own. Besides, reference humor also expires really fast. I mean, does anyone even use Nostalgia Critics "of course" meme anymore? At least this portion where I make fun of Magneto's overwritten monologues is pretty funny.
I, the Miracle's Magneto, alone shall make a mockery of the greatest effort.
I, Magneto, the Earth's most powerful supervillain, shall make Shakespeare roll in his grave while laughing his butt off.
He then goes to take over a military base where Ratchetbeard's team from Rayman 2 plays, always a good choice for villainy escapades. Meanwhile the boys are secretly oogling at the girl. I had forgotten what horn dogs these characters are, Jesus. Anyway, after a joke that is way too dark for the mood of such a lighthearted review, the heroes go to the military base. To be honest, there's not much new I can comment on. I do the same stuff with decent comedic track selections and nitpicking about insignificant details while being all bombastic.
That latter point may come off as hypocritical as well, considering how much I ridiculed Magneto for doing the same.
Eventually, after the final battle and Xavier's thanks, I come to the summary where I call Uncanny X-Men #1 middling for how underdeveloped the cast is and make assumptions about creators' work ethics. I go crazy for having to live with my parents. Oh, the horror. Ending in the credits where I give a sample of my future a cappella prowess by humming the theme of X-Men the animated series. Ironic considering that I haven't watched a single episode of that show.
Thus concludes the first and the only episode of The Essence of X-Men. I have the half-finished script of the second episode lying somewhere at my parents' attic, but I just procrastinated with it for too long before switching my interest to movies. For my first effort, sure, the influences of Nostalgia Critic can be seen from my cartoony performance, but I think there are some good observations in it, which are needles under the haystack of dark gags and nitpicks. Well, hopefully this was educational, and if you actually want to know if reading the first issue of Uncanny X-Men is worth your time, just stick with Linkara's review of it. I'm Matti Malli, aka Hedonistic Actor, and I thank you for your time.